This is a 2024 BMW X5 xDrive50e, the new plug-in hybrid SUV from the Munich brand that replaces the xDrive45e and is part of the updated X5 and X6 lineup. It is also one of 4 non-XM trims above the S-Drive and xDrive50i X5s, but beneath the V8 powered M60i. It is also far and away the most fuel efficient. But does this plug-in hybrid still feel like a BMW? Let's find out. I review all kinds of cars and I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for a rear-wheel drive BMW X5 xDrive50i is $66,875. Making it all-wheel drive, X not S drive, adds $2,300 to the price. Going with this plug-in hybrid raises the price to $74,275. And my test car did have several options and cost $87,275. Yeah, 13 grand more. All right, with that, now is a good time to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. Looking at the front of the car, the first thing you'll probably notice is the narrower headlight design. That is 1.4 inches or 35 millimeters narrower than before, and it does give that more squint-eyed, aggressive look. BMW also played with the design around the front fascia in general, tweaks around the kidney grille, bumper, that kind of thing. Also, these curtains off to the side as well. It generally has a fairly modern, classic BMW shape. The kidney grills have definitely grown and become a little bit more ostentatious, but this one certainly isn't the worst offender, and I think does kind of hold on to that more classic kidney grill shape better than other designs. Because this particular X5 has the M Sport Professional package, the kidney grill is actually illuminated. Obviously you can't see it now, but let me quickly show you what that looks like in the dark. Pretty interesting. Also, because we have the executive package on this car as well, all the lights all around the car are full LED. More than usual. I'm actually quite excited to show you what's underneath. And there it is, your turbocharged 3-liter inline-6 plug-in hybrid, 483 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. And why was I more excited than usual to show you under the hood? I love the inline-6 engine configuration, 4 aft mounted, because this is inherently a front-rear setup, front engine, rear-wheel drive setup. The center line of the front axle is right around where the back of this brace meets up with the shock tower, so more than half the engine is actually behind the front axle, so this is definitely a more centralized weight. In fact, this has a rearward weight bias slightly. 48% of the weight is in front, 52% is in back. That's really nice to see, especially on a bigger family size SUV. And finally, windshield washer fluid is really easy to get to right here. Looking at the X5 in profile, you get a better sense of just how big these things really are. Nearly 195 inches long, pretty darn tall too. This particular one is painted in a Brooklyn gray metallic paint, which is a $650 optional color. Also, because we have the M Sport package, we get these 21-inch instead of standard 20-inch wheels, and we've got gloss black roof rails up top and some features inside as well. This is your plug-in port for the battery pack. I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen so you can check those out, and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. Again, because of that M Sport package, we get 21-inch wheels and Pirelli P0 summer rubber to go with them. And this is a larger SUV, but this has a bunch of M stuff, and it is a BMW after all, so we have a staggered wheel set. 275 millimeter section width wheels in front and 315 section width wheels in the rear. Looking at the car from the rear, the changes are a little bit more subtle, but we do have new taillight design right here, and is very chunky and three-dimensional. They come out like a solid inch or more right here and kind of extend, and you've got these two vertical rows. They almost look like arrowheads when combined. It is a power tailgate, of course. And actually, it's a two-piece power tailgate. And with it open, you get 33 cubic feet of storage and a nice and easy loading tray. And if you need more than 33 cubic feet of storage, that is easy to do. Pull a couple levers and the spring-loaded seat backs of the second row fall into place, and you get 71 cubic feet of storage. It's not a perfectly flat floor, but it does look pretty wide. And it also looks like plenty of room for my bike, but let's find out. Oh yeah. Plenty wide, plenty long, plenty convenient. Fits my bike without any trouble at all. All right, let's check out inside. Okay, usually I pull my bike back out of the car off camera, but I'm wondering if you're thinking, I was like, man, that'd be a little bit easier if the car were just a little bit lower. Well, BMW actually has a solution for that. There's two buttons on the lower tailgate. One is the power button to just lower it and lift it as well. But there's a second button right next to it to the right. This lowers the entire car down. The BMW X5 xDrive50e comes standard with an air suspension that can lower the entire car to make loading and unloading easier, and it's actually pretty fast too, and you can power it right from here. So now there's a little LED button flashing, and you can hear the motors whirring, and you can see the car lowering right now. Well, there you go. Remove your bike as easy as you'd like with the air suspension on the BMW X5 xDrive50e. Pretty sweet. The first thing I'm going to do is turn the car on, because start-stop button's right here. And I'm going to put it in the sport driving mode. And there's that creamy inline six running. It says sport mode right there. Convenient. I wanted to show you something in the back, because this has the climate comfort package for $2,000. We get this guy right here, which means we have 4-zone climate control as well as heated seats in the back. The climate control package also gets you ventilated front seats, heated front armrests, and a heated steering wheel. Standard equipment on every single BMW X5 and X6 is a panoramic moonroof. I am 5 foot 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and I have about 3 inches of legroom here. We also have pretty high seat bottoms, so thigh support is pretty good. Even with that panoramic moonroof I showed you, I do have headroom. Not only that, I do have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. I also have my own little lights right here, and a manual sunshade as well. And of course, I do have a center armrest as well. And with this little lever right here, I have a bit of storage, and this little button right here, I have cup holders. Pretty typical controls on the door right here. You also have 2-position seat memory. We do have the multi-contour seats, so we have lots of controls here, and we also have lots of lumbar and bolster adjust right here as well. You can adjust both tilt and telescope in the steering wheel electrically right there. Again, because we have the M Sport package, we have an M Sport steering wheel right here. Nice little M right there. It is also a nice thick rim with nice contours. And as I said before, it is also a heated steering wheel thanks to the climate comfort package. The M Sport package also gives us this anthracite headliner as well. You're looking at a 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster, and right next to that, a 14.9-inch center display, and Both of these are connected by a single piece of glass that kind of curves, concaves subtly. Fittingly, BMW calls it the BMW curved display. This particular X5 also has the executive package, which gives us Harman Kardon sound system and a head-up display, among other things. It costs $3,350, but standard equipment is wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Also, standard equipment, a wireless smartphone charger. But as I said, because we have the Climate Comfort package, we have heated and ventilated seats, heated seats, and a heated steering wheel. And if you turn on the heated seats, it'll heat the armrests as well. We also have, as part of this center console display, this lit BMW X5 display here on the passenger side, just above the glove box. We are up to the 8th generation BMW iDrive system. This is the adjustable air suspension ride height, and as I showed you, it's pretty darn slick. Our lower center console is reasonably deep and has another USB Type-C port right there. Looking up, we do have a couple of lights and the panoramic moonroof that I already showed you, and that is also standard equipment. All right, let's talk drive modes. We have 3 drive modes. We have hybrid, which is what we're in now, electric, and there you can see that we have the electric, and you can also go to electric or electric individual, and you can configure each drive mode. You can see all the different options we have right here. Or we can go to hybrid. Hybrid, there's hybrid and hybrid Eco Pro, and we have sport. And sport, once again, does have an individual setting, and here are the things you configure in the individual setting. There are a lot of really interesting things about a plug-in hybrid BMW mid-size SUV. There's a lot to learn, and I think the best place to learn is on the road. So let's get back to the drive. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. Where does 483 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque come from? Well, the biggest contributor is this silky smooth turbocharged 3-liter inline-6. I absolutely love this engine configuration, and BMW's version of it is among the best. It delivers 308 horsepower and 331 pound-feet of torque. It also gets both port and direct fuel injection, and it runs on the Miller combustion cycle instead of the auto combustion cycle, which is kind of sort of like the Atkinson cycle for turbocharged and supercharged engines. The rest of the power comes from a pretty darn potent electric motor, which is housed inside the transmission. It whirs its way up to 194 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. And BMW says that this is 83 horsepower more than what the 45e could achieve. It gets its energy from a 19.2 kilowatt hour battery pack, which BMW says is 12% larger than the 45e. And that combination is good for 40 miles of EV-only driving, should you choose to use it. In addition to that electric motor, the transmission does also house 8 forward gears. It is an 8-speed automatic Steptronic transmission and generally works really well. And then, yes, xDrive, power does go to all 4 wheels. And it is generally a very good powertrain, but it has something that I'm still trying to get used to, and that is adaptive brake recuperation. I am not that far behind someone right now, so if I were to just speed up, get close to them, and then lift off the throttle, I'm not touching the brake. It is the recuperation that is doing all the deceleration work for me. And it's a little unsettling because I would much rather just be touching the brake. It's generally pretty darn smooth, but it's just unsettling to not have your foot on the brake as the car is slowing down. Now, I've gotten used to brake recuperation and having some control over it by where my right foot is on the accelerator pedal, and that drives how much deceleration I get. I like that control. I'm not a huge fan of not having control over it by the computer figuring out how much deceleration you could use without touching the brake. It's not my favorite. Now, the good news is you can turn it off if you hold down the upshift paddle. That switches it to the charge mode, and that's a little bit more of a consistent amount of brake recuperation when you lift off the accelerator pedal. And if you want to turn adaptive brake recuperation back on, you just hold down the upshift paddle again, and it's back on. Plug-in hybrid gadgets aside, I generally really like this powertrain. As I mentioned before, I love inline-six engines, and I absolutely adore BMW's versions of inline-six engines. BMW and Mercedes are right on top of each other as the best inline-sixes you can get. They're just so naturally smooth, naturally balanced, and they're just really pleasant to propel you forward. Combine that with incredibly smooth electric motors and you just get this very nice powertrain. But 483 horsepower, if I floor it, I get very healthy acceleration. That is delicious amounts of acceleration you get from this thing. Nearly 500 horsepower, and you have even more torque to play with. And that was in the hybrid driving mode. As you could see, it was a little bit hesitant to get us moving with the kickdown and everything. But if I put it in the sport driving mode first, the engine kicks on and stays on in the sport driving mode. And if I floor it again, oh yeah, I get very quick kick down, fast shifts, and a glorious smooth sound as we get moving and moving fast. This is a lot of power to work with and overcomes its fairly heavy curb weight with zero trouble. Even in the electric mode, obviously things won't be quite as loud, but the acceleration is still pretty decent. Floor the accelerator. Actually, I take that back. Floor the accelerator and it just switches to hybrid and you get all the power. But if I put it in electric mode, things are nice and quiet, nice and smooth, and you can go about driving with no trouble at all. If you start with a full battery pack, you also get really, really good fuel economy, 58 miles per gallon equivalent combined. Once that battery pack is depleted, it's still not bad, 22 miles per gallon combined. That is actually slightly worse than the 40i BMW X5s on its own, but again, if you have a full battery pack, it gets made up for very quickly. Of course, while fuel economy is very important, it's not nearly as much fun as accelerating, especially in something with as much power as this. Of course, I had to test it. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test in this plug-in hybrid midsize SUV from BMW. See what this 3-liter inline-six along with an electric motor can do. I'm actually pretty optimistic about this, and I do know that we have a launch control of sorts. I am in the sport driving mode, speaking of, and I do have traction control off, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, coming to a complete stop. Foot hard on the brake, floor the accelerator. Launch control active, off the brake. Oh, okay, oh, nice, oh, big aggressive shifts. Man, oh man, those first 3 shifts, the first to second, second to third, and third to fourth were aggressive. Real fast, real jolts back every time you did it. The only thing was when I lifted off the brake, there was this weird half-moment delay before we got moving, but then we got moving very aggressively. BMW says 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, and man, I believe it. I mentioned that BMW said 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. That's only 0.4 of a second slower than the V8 powered M60i. It's potent. All right, let's dig into the chassis. You do get double wishbone suspension up front, multi-link suspension in the rear. That is a nice configuration to have, definitely better than having struts up front. Also, as I showed you, the xDrive50e comes standard with an air suspension, and that allows BMW to give this X5 really nice and compliant ride, and yet a relatively sharp responding vehicle when the going gets twisty. Not to mention that it is actually a slightly rearward biased machine. 48% of the weight is on the front axle, 52% of the weight is on the rear. that is really nice to allow for slightly better turn-in response. Now, this is a very heavy thing, so it's not like it's fast, but it does have the type of chassis balance to give confidence when you're going as quick as you can in it. All right, everybody, time for a handling test in this updated BMW X5, this plug-in hybrid xDrive50e BMW X5, but with a lot of M Sport stuff attached. I do have it in the sport driving mode, and I do also have traction and stability control off. So, let's see how it goes. Oh, okay. Yes, good pull for sure. And I love inline six engines. Whew. Great start, great start. Pretty good vehicle balance. A little bit of understeer, but not that much actually. For such a big SUV, that's better than I thought. Good grip too. Oh man, a little bit more understeer, but for such a big SUV, the chassis balance is actually pretty good. Steering is a tiny touch on the light side. I do wish I had a little bit more precision in the steering. You do feel the weight a bit over those whoops in the road. Man, but the feel is actually pretty darn good in this thing. Okay, there was a fair amount of understeer there, but overall, this 2024 X5 grows my confidence that BMW hasn't lost its touch. This is a big family-size SUV, just under 195 inches long, 5,500 pounds, over 5,500 pounds curb weight, and yet it's actually still pretty darn responsive, good chassis balance, and a fair amount of grip as well. Having that staggered wheel setup, wider tires in the rear, you know, it holds the road really nicely. Now, we do have a tiny touch more understeer than ideal. You know, a Porsche Cayenne would probably feel a little bit nimbler, but oof. Considering that you can also get 58 miles per gallon combined, it's pretty sweet. BMW made a great compromise between the ride and handling of this X5, and I find it comfortable in most every situation. And that's true on back roads like this or on the interstate. I did test it there as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate. See how the xDrive50e feels on the open road. I do have it now in the hybrid driving mode, and I do also, of course, have the traction control and everything else back on. This particular X5 does have the Driver Assistant Professional Package, which is a $2,500 option, and that means that we have additional driving aids compared to standard equipment, and that includes something called Highway Assistant. But we also have a fair amount of options for cruise control and things like that, and I want to briefly show that to you. Cruise control options are to the left of the steering wheel. Pretty typical stuff here. Cancel, resume, speed increment, up, down, right here. Quick taps are 1 mile an hour increments. Hold firm presses are 5 mile an hour increments. Then you have set cruise control on off, but cruise control mode as well. With mode, you can choose between distance control or assisted driving. To the right side of the steering wheel, you press this button right here, and you get content, layout, and head-up display options right here. Content is what the instrument cluster is going to show you. So let's change that to assisted view. But real quick, you could also have augmented view, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so there's that. Going to layout. Let's go with the wider of the two. I like that. And then to the head-up display, I think I want the head-up display to show me the assisted view as well. And there it is up there. I don't know how well that shows up on the camera. All right, let's get on the road. Okay, pulling onto the interstate now. I will go ahead and put the driving aids up on the screen right now so you can check that out so you have a better idea of what this X5 comes with. Getting up to speed. Cruise control is on. Cruise control is set to 78 miles an hour to go with traffic. And I already have the assisted driving on, so all that's working. And the assistant view shows 3 lanes worth of highway, and it also shows where you are in the lane. So right now it's showing me center in the lane, but if I move towards the right, it'll show that I'm towards the right. Now we're going through a curve, so I'm going to take my hands off the wheel. And yes, it's following the curve nicely. However, after only a few seconds, I'm getting a complaint to put my hands on the wheel. So this is not a sustained hands-off system. All right, let me quickly show you what this assisted view screen looks like. So we're currently in the right lane, and it's showing us fairly well centered in the lane. If I move to the center lane, and it assisted with that lane change, by the way. Now we're in the center lane, but we don't have much traffic around us, so you can't see much. Were we to have traffic, you would see blocks, little car shapes on either side. Now, it's not just the instrument cluster, it also is the head-up display. I don't know if you can see that, but that's nice to have. More fundamentally, this is a pretty darn well isolated cabin. Road noise is actually quite quiet. I'm very impressed with how little road noise we get. We do get a little bit of wind noise. You can hear it at the seams here, but it is still generally very quiet in here. And thanks to this air suspension, we do have a pretty darn comfortable ride despite rolling on 21-inch high-performance summer tires. So yeah, altogether, this is a great highway cruising car, and I'd say it'd be great for both the first and second row. All right, what do I think of this BMW X5 xDrive50e? I like it. I like it a lot. It is inherently a front-engine rear-wheel drive layout. It does have good weight distribution. It does still retain that BMW feel, even though this is, you know, the new generation of BMW feel. This is a very heavy thing. I really like what BMW did with the powertrain. I love that this is an inline 6-cylinder, not an inline 4-cylinder. And I think that it is a well thought out, thought through machine. I would like it even more if I had more control over things like brake recuperation and just a little bit more of a sense of I commanded everything that was going on. But BMW executed well with how those things operate, so I'm not hugely put off by that. Now, I did also recently drive the 2024 Mercedes-Benz GLE 450e, and I liked that one quite a lot as well. And a lot of people ask me, how does that one compare to this one? And now that I've finally driven this one, I can say the Mercedes is even quieter than this one, even smoother than this one, and even more comfortable than this one. It is a really just serene machine to drive around in, and that is really nice, especially when you want to keep your nerves nice and calm. There's a flip side to that, of course. When you want to have a little bit more fun, when you want to feel exhilarated, when you want to feel like you can still get through some corners quickly. This BMW, especially with all the M Sport equipment added to it, does feel much more quick-witted, much more alive, and much more organic and intuitive in the corners. And I appreciate that very much. So the X5 definitely leans more towards the enthusiast side of the equation, whereas the Mercedes is a little bit more of a pure consumer kind of a product. There are definitely days where I would rather drive the Mercedes, but the enthusiast in me would definitely choose this BMW. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching.